What's up, guys? Before we get into this episode, I just wanted to let you know that there was a slight, and I mean slight, audio error in the recording of this episode. Now, one of the microphones was on a slight lean and didn't pick up the sound quality as best as I would like. So some of the parts may sound a bit distant, they may sound a bit echoey, but I've done my best to try and fix these errors and give you the best quality experience possible. Now, is this unlistenable? Absolutely not. It is still a quality episode. Jeremy was amazing. He was humble, down to earth, and told some really great stories. So you will still 100% enjoy this episode. Just bear with me while I correct these errors and make sure that the episodes going forward are of the best and highest quality possible. Now, without taking up any more of your time, let's get into the episode. This is the Above Average Podcast, and you are listening because you want an above average life. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Above Average Podcast, the podcast where we talk to above average people about their above average lives. Now today I have a special one on. My guest today is a HPB and transplant surgeon from Newcastles. You do the Freeman and the RVI, is that correct?
Mainly work at the Freeman Hospital.
Mainly work at the Freeman. He's been a doctor for 27 years, since 1996, and I know he has some amazing insights in the life of a surgeon, how to manage focus and stress, and what it's like being a star on Channel 4's Geordie Hospital. I'm excited to welcome the podcast, Dr. Jeremy French. Welcome to the show, mate. How are you doing?
I'm all right, Adam. Thanks very much, actually, and really appreciate mentioning Geordie Hospital. Thanks.
Yes, we'll get into that. Don't you worry, mate. Don't you worry. But for those of us who aren't surgeons, can you tell me exactly what it is HPB is and what it is you do as a day-to-day job?
So in medicine, there's loads of shortened expressions, and HBB stands for hepatopancreaticobiliary, which essentially means operating on the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. Nice. Was that something you always wanted to work on, or was this something you kind of just decided to specialise in? Yeah, I think it's a complex specialty, and I sort of got into it when I was a junior doctor, and you start off in surgery and you do various different things. And then I was working at the Freeman Hospital with a couple of guys, one of who's retired now, one who's partially working for another organisation, Richard Charnley and Derek Manus, and they got me into doing that type of surgery. And in fact, what happened was one of the more senior doctors had some time off, right. And so I had to step up, and I was assisting in these major cases 2-3 times a week, and it just gripped you, and it gave you the bug, and that's the way my career developed.
Nice. So was it always something like, obviously when we're kids we have an idea of what we want to do when we grow up, want to be an astronaut, fireman, policeman, whatever, right? Was that something that you always want to do? Did you always want to be a doctor, or was there a path before that?
You know what, loads of people have asked me that question, and I've looked back, and I think probably there was a family member who was a doctor. My parents weren't and aren't doctors, but there was a family member who was a doctor, and I always thought that sounded pretty good. Mm-hmm. And then, you're in sixth form and you're doing well at A-levels, and people say, oh, what do you want to do? And I thought, well, that sounded good, so let's go for it. But specifically for surgery, it was a case of, you finish med school, then you start to get an idea. Mm-hmm. And with surgery, it's very competitive, and I'm a competitive person, and maybe we can touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah, cool.
And you get quick results. It's quite high stress but high rewards, and also it's quite practical. It's a craft specialty. And being a sportsman, I found it I had an affinity to be able to do it. And it's like many things in life, I think, actually. If you enjoy it, then you're going to work hard at it, you get better at it, and you enjoy it, and it's like a cycle. So I think multiple things, really. And I look back and I think, was it the right decision? Absolutely the right decision. Did I know what it was like when I chose? Not really. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, in a really good place, yeah.
Oh, amazing. So it's funny that it's always been a thing since school, and I think that passion, because we talk about passion on this show, and one of the things I always like is, why do people do what they do? And it's always interesting to hear, because some people, I remember when we actually went and watched the Geordie Hospital.
Is that right?
Yeah, we actually went, and one of the nurses was saying that, you might even know her, to be fair, she was saying that when she was like 5 or something, her dad got a splinter, and they were on holiday, and he gave her his penknife and was like, oh, I need you to cut it out. And she loved it, and she was like, yep, want to be a surgeon ever since. And I was like, that's cool. How much is surgery on your dad, and then you want to be a surgeon for life? So it's just an interesting thing to hear people's stories and stuff. But take me back to the early days. So what's the education like to be a surgeon? How long is the training? How long is the university degree? Like, how long does it take between deciding you want to be a doctor and actually becoming the doctor you are?
So, you do your A-levels, you go to medical school, 18 years of age. It's 5 years at university.
Wow.
I did a intercalated science degree, so I finished after 6 years. And then what you do your foundation years, or they were called house officer and SHO at that stage, and you do 1 year of a rotational aspect doing medicine and surgery. And then I did my junior surgical training, which was for 2 years. And then I did a research degree for 2 years, did an MD.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do your higher surgical training, which is 5 years.
So what's that? I'm trying to work out that. Also, it's not finished. Keep going.
Jesus. I did an attachment at Leeds when I had completed my certificate of surgical training, and then I became a consultant in 2008. So if you can add all that up, it's well over about 13 years, something like that.
Wow. I've never stuck to a job for 13 years. The longest job I've ever had was 7 years. I couldn't imagine training for that job for that long and then eventually doing that job. That's insane.
I think you do. I mean, you do train for the job, but the good thing about medicine, and I'd say this to people because I do a lot of education for people who are doing the GCSEs or A-levels, and it's about why would you want to go into medicine? And medicine, I think, is such a broad church. And you could become a psychiatrist, you become a public health doctor, a GP, like my wife is, you become an HBB surgeon, paediatrician. The spectrum is so wide that actually whatever floats your boat, as it were, or stimulates that passion, there's something there for everybody. And going on just slightly longer is it's about... Medicine is not an exit degree, it's an entrance degree. And what I mean by that is that when you qualify, you actually just realise that you know nothing, and your education starts when you qualify, and that continues throughout your life. So one of your questions was, what gets you out of bed in the morning, what's the passion? And the thing for me about medicine, and especially personally for surgery, is a continual learning exercise, and you're always learning something new, A, about the discipline, B, about other people, and C, about yourself. Yeah, nice. So there's still stuff that comes up now where you're maybe caught off guard slightly, or have you seen it all now? I mean, that's so I think there's two things there. One is actually inside the operating theatre, and the other one is from a technical aspects. And then the second thing is about the knowledge base and about learning about yourself and people. So technical aspects, I would say I'm pretty comfortable with most things. But having said that, one of the dangers potentially of surgery is becoming complacent. Because
I'd imagine it would take some of the focus away from it. Like when you drive to work and you forget how you've driven to work.
Absolutely. So every operation, you have to be focused and take it seriously. But I have the confidence, because I've done it for so long, I know what the outcome's going to be, so therefore I can carry that confidence forward into the operation. So within the operating theatre, I am learning things, but perhaps at a slightly less pace than I did at the start of my career. And I think as you go through your career, my job now is to not only just do the operations, but to train other people. And that's really important, because when I retire, there needs to be somebody to do the job that I'm doing.
Exactly. And it's hard, because I've met a lot of people who, in their jobs, there's a very much thing going around at the minute of a minimum wage, minimum effort mindset. And in your case, there's no way you could have that mindset. So do you think when you were sort of growing up, did you always have a mindset where you completed things, where you had focus, or was that something you learned purely based on your surgical training?
I think that's an interesting point about, I suppose, personality types, or who you are as an individual, and where that's going to take you. And I think with surgery, you need to be physically and mentally strong. You need to be a completer finisher. You need to have your attention to detail. But also you need to be, I wouldn't say a risk taker. You don't want to be on a podcast saying that surgeons are risk takers, but you need to be able to make that bold move.
But you need to be decisive. Would that be the term you would say?
Decisive, probably a better expression, but also prepared to actually push yourself to be the best person that you can be. And in that comes a little bit of competition as well, because you want to say, well, okay, I can do this operation, I want to do the next operation, I want to do the previous operation a little bit better. And there was something there about being a completer finisher and about being determined. And I've certainly been that, I think, all through my life, and in various different ways, both academic and sporting as well. Pushing yourself to the point whereby you've reached your limit.
No, that's interesting, that, because it always amazes me that people think that they're the same person throughout their life, and it seems to me that you always kind of had that. You were always kind of heading for that almost. Would your parents like that at all, or is that something you just had? So
in terms of the competition, you're pushing yourself. Both parents are like that. So my late father was a chap who, left school with no qualifications, and he built himself up through his contacts with the individual and himself and his own personality, and got to a high position in a national organisation. My mum, who's still alive, who is actually 80 this year.
Nice.
She plays tennis for the UK.
Wow. Pro?
She's not a professional, but she plays against people who were professionals.
Nice.
So she's just come back from Villiers in Austria. And this year she's also been over to the United States and various other places in Europe, and she's off to Amsterdam relatively soon as well. So my mum is fiercely competitive.
At 80 years old
as
well.
At 80 years of age.
Jesus, a lot of 80-year-olds I know are just wheeling around or sat in front of the TV. Your mum's killing people at tennis, man. That's amazing.
No, she's heavily involved in tennis and looks after 2 or 3 junior teams as well. So I think I've always had that competition. I think the thing that's changed, though, is how to use that competitive spirit. And before, perhaps I used to be extremely competitive with other people. Growing up, and you had to win your games, and you perhaps weren't as modest in victory or accepting of defeat. Whereas actually now, it's more about competition with yourself, and it's about saying, I want to be the best person I can be in lots of different areas. And the really exciting thing about, I suppose, every stage of life is exciting, but now is about 2 children, Anna and I. Scarlett, who's 12, and Sebastian, who's 10. And they play a lot of sports. And it's about passing on that knowledge, just be competitive with yourself rather than other people. I'm not sure it lands particularly well all the time, but we're trying to instill that.
No, it's interesting because you do, children watch. A lot of people think that they can just tell the kids. I don't have kids yet, but I guarantee I'm gonna, I know myself, I'm gonna have to lead by example, not by what I say. Right? It's I used to have my nana, my grandma, when I was younger. She used to always tell me don't smoke, but she was a chain smoker, and it always made me curious to try smoking. I've tried it once and it's disgusting. I would never do it again. But it always made me curious because she said that, but she never quit. And that's what ended up, killing her in the end. And I was like, that's just one example from my life of people who said one thing but did another and expected me to follow suit. Obviously I did, because I knew it's not a good habit, but it was just interesting that as kids we always watch, we always question, and I think I'm excited for that when I have kids, because I'm excited to see. I'll be judging my attitude all the time. I'll be double thinking, triple thinking everything that I do.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. That actually, obviously, we've got 2 kids, and you can tie yourself up in knots, thinking, "Crikey Moses, everything you do is observed." But at the same time, you've just got to be yourself. And I think something that Anna and I do is you try to set a good example. You have good food, you do exercise. You go to bed at a good time. You have fun when you have fun, and everything's a balance. But I think the other thing is that you do take traits from your parents. Yeah, there's 100%. But, and this is one thing that both Anna's parents and my parents have done, is you've got to be yourself as an individual. And actually, okay, you could say, "Oh, isn't Scarlett like me, and isn't Sebastian like Anna?" But actually, they're going to be individuals, and it's about encouraging that individuality and they are going to be their own people, and they're going to develop throughout their life. You know, as I'm sure you've developed. You know, you're different from where you were at 15.
Oh, definitely.
And
I had hair then. Yeah.
You had hair that just been transplanted to your chin, I think.
Yeah.
Adam,
literally, head's been flipped upside down is what a lot of people say. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. So you know, I think it's carrying that thing forward. And you know, earlier in your life, it's all about developing yourself. Whereas you get a bit older, then it's about developing others. So that's the way I see it. And you know, I've had my ups and downs in life, and things have gone well, things haven't gone quite so well.
Yeah.
And you try to sort of pass on that wisdom, if at all possible.
Yeah, interesting. Was there ever a point where you felt like, obviously you're a highly competitive person, but was there ever a time where you felt like throwing in the towel? Maybe you thought that going through all that wasn't worth it?
Well, not particularly. I think you sort of have a natural cadence of life whereby things are going really well and things are going not quite so well. I think I've always really enjoyed the job I do, so therefore the rewards are always enough to be able to offset the downtimes. I think probably a difficult time was when I was revising for my final exams, my completion of surgical training, and Anna was away and they were on holiday, and I was just basically sat at home revising, and that was a bit miserable, just getting through that. And you know, sometimes you do really big cases, they've gone very, very well, and then there's a situation where the patient has a complication afterwards, and that's not a nice feeling. But you know, in general, the upsides are better than the downs. The only thing I would say about when things are going very well, and I say this, and people who know me in the surgical world, the trainees, I have various different sound bites.
Okay.
And one of those sound bites is the most dangerous time for a surgeon is when everything's going well. So if you've done 3 cases, they've gone very well, 4 cases, 5, you're starting to feel as though you're invincible, you're starting to feel as though, you know, you can't do anything wrong, and that's when you can take the eye off the prize, and actually that's when a complication can happen. So just be self-aware and be mindful.
It's hard to be that focused all the time, though, I can imagine. I mean, obviously, if you've done it enough, that would be your habit, is to be focused, I would imagine. But for a lot of people, if you notice, people can't concentrate very much. Like, do you notice that, obviously, you gave the speech, that's where we met in Newcastle when you gave the speech about the chin paradox. Did you notice, do you look at the crowd much? Do you see who's paying attention? Do you notice that sort of thing?
Yes, I've done a lot of talking in the past to various different size audiences, 1-to-1s, 1-to-4s, 20 people, 50 people, and I think in that sort of audience, I do like to sense what the audience is feeling, and I like to get feedback, and then you can tailor what you're going to say to them. And I think, you know, within the crowd where we were, there were some people who were very attentive, some people who were attentive, and perhaps some people who weren't quite as attentive. Being a little slightly playful, I might just sort of pick on those people who are slightly not attentive.
Yeah, the ones that are sort of drifting off in the background.
Ask them a question about what they think of things.
Just flash up a picture of someone's surgery and just they get their attention back again.
Absolutely, just pull up one of those videos or something. And
I was amazed by that. You know, I was so happy that you brought those pictures along, because I'm not like it doesn't like, you know, it's not some sort of fetish or anything like that, but I love horror movies, slashers and stuff where, like, I think I watched one where I think it's called Hatchet, and he strangles someone with his own intestines, and I was like, this is interesting to see this. But like pictures like that, I'm like, ooh, interesting.
It's a funny thing actually, because, you know, obviously it's something I do many times a week, and I've done for many years, so it's second nature to me, and sometimes you don't realise that actually that's very different for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you know, you see things on TV in the operating theatre, and you don't really see inside the abdomen particularly. You see the operating theatre and people standing around a table. And one thing I do say to students I have coming in who've not been theatre before, I say, have you had a good breakfast? Have you had something to drink?
Yeah.
And I always, when they come to the table, they're quite nervous. So to break that ice, what I would do is I would say, I have another soundbite and a rule, and that is when you come into Mr. French's theatre, you have to tell a joke.
Okay.
And then they're like, oh my goodness, I have to tell a joke in Mr. French's theatre. So I'll start. And so I've got a bank of really terrible dad jokes. For example, two Spanish firemen, Jose Hosby. It's terrible.
I like that one. I haven't actually heard that one.
I haven't heard that one.
That's
right. That's right at the bottom of how you know, terrible joke pile. And so what that does, that sets the bar very low,
Yeah.
and they tell a joke, and then they feel part of the team. And what I do is I always keep them engaged with a conversation, and I notice that if they aren't responding or they're becoming quite quiet, I might go and ask them to sit down, because I have had a situation whereby students have fainted in theatre because it's just a little bit too much, bright lights, heat, no breakfast, etc. So I appreciate it is very different for some people.
Interesting. So what is we spoke on the phone, so I'm curious, what is the typical life of a surgeon like? So in terms of hours, free time, anything to do with being on call, like how organised or chaotic does it get?
Wow, big question.
Take your time.
Yeah, I think. So I would look at that in something called Mr. French's Pizza of Life.
Okay.
And that is where you have a pizza and you divide the slices of the pizza up. And if you had a goat's cheese pizza, it would be fantastic for the first 2 slices, but then by the time you get to slice 4, it's quite claggy.
Yeah.
And so what would be nice to have a selection of different variety pizzas within the round that you have. And I view that as being, you've got your home life, you have your personal time, and then you have your work life, and it's about managing your pizza to make sure that one is not too much bigger than the other.
Yeah.
So I think to answer the question, for that to have a successful work life, you have to have a very solid foundation at home, and that's with your partner, and if you've got kids, and if you haven't, it's about friends and family and making sure that you've got that foundation there. So I must have to say, there's always a continued challenge to be able to meet that, because work is very seductive, so you always have to be mindful about how much time you spend at home. But when you're at work, it's a case of you have various different things that you do. You do outpatient clinics, you do ward rounds, you do theatre, you do multidisciplinary team meetings. There are other quality governance meetings, business meetings, strategy meetings. So it's quite a varied selection of events that you do.
Yeah, there's never a dull moment.
No, the thing is as well, you could take yourself off and just do operating, or you could have a research portfolio, or educational, or leadership and management. So you can take it in any direction that you'd want to, Adam.
Nice. How has it impacted your family? Because obviously you were a surgeon while you had built this family up, while you had your children and stuff. Like, what goes through your mind when it comes to thinking about, how does this impact my kids? How does it impact my wife? How do you balance that quality time with them versus just, coming home, like chilling in front of the TV and then ignoring them for the night?
Yeah, I think that's a continued challenge, and I use that word not in that it's a bad thing. It's something that I have an extremely strong partnership with my wife. She's a GP. She works part-time.
It probably helps that she's in the similar sort of field, I would imagine.
It does help that she understands to some degree, which hasn't done major operations, but she does understand the role. Yeah. I think it's extremely important about people having, I wouldn't say specific roles, but take responsibility for certain things. And that's almost like an unsaid, and you work it out as a team. And with the kids now at 12 and 10, they've got lots of activities on. So life juggling can be quite tricky, and it's a continual process that you have to work at. So it has an impact. I suppose if I had a 9-to-5 job, that would be slightly easier in terms of logistics. But at the same time, Adam, if I wasn't doing what I really enjoyed, then I wouldn't have that drive and that energy, and I wouldn't be as perhaps able to contribute like I do. So I suppose what you're saying is, when you're growing up and you're not with a partner and a family, you can be all about yourself. Whereas actually now, it's not all about yourself. It's about the family, and it's about continued self-checking and having a conversation about, well, you're doing this, I'm doing that. This is how it's going to work out, and but it's something I'm mindful. It is a challenge.
Yeah, it's amazing, because I think with the random hours that you work with, you working through the night, like a lot of sort of men around here now, might work the 9 to 5, 9 to 6 or whatever. And I think it's very easy now to neglect the family. Like, I've worked with lots of families, and I've seen families come and go throughout my working life. Do you know what I mean? I've been working since I was 14. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, paper round was a 14-year-old, and I still dealt with family stuff. But I noticed that a lot of the men, they seem to be very much. It's very much a joke now that dads are quite lazy. And they're not small. Like, if you look at any TV dad, you know, you look at Homer Simpson, Peter Griffin from Family Guy, anything from, E4 or Channel 4, those sorts of shows. The dads are always quite, beer focused, donut focused, TV focused. And it's like, I wonder how that plays. I'm very curious of how that plays a part in like people's lives now, but you're very different to that.
Yeah, I think I definitely, count on one hand the number of times I've been out with the lads on a Friday night for beers and things. Now, I'm not saying I haven't done that in the past, because that certainly has been the case, but now it's much more focused on, for example, if we get a bit of spare time. Last night, for example, Scarlett, my daughter, was going to be playing cricket today down in Hartlepool, so we thought, right, last night let's go down to the cricket nets and try and have a bit of practice. Unfortunately, it was raining, so we didn't actually get there, but that's the sort of thing that you do now. You're involved. So we came back and played a new board game that we'd got about geography, and it was quite good, pretty good fun. Yeah, Sebastian played as well, and it's and that's the way that I want to run my life. I think I'm 51 now, and I always think that life comes in stages a little bit, perhaps not for everybody, and sometimes people haven't moved out of a particular stage, but if you enjoy that stage of life that you're in, you won't want to go back and do the things exactly that you used to do in that life. For example, junior doctor, before I met Anna, Friday night, straight down to the Telegraph, play some pool, stay out till 2 a.m, get up, go and play hockey somewhere for Tynemouth Hockey Club, go out with the hockey club, get in at 3 a.m. in the morning, get up, go and play Winter League tennis. When it's all about you. Then it's all about you, and then maybe, you might have some free time on a Sunday afternoon if you did want to do something else. But that's a stage of life I was in, and it was great at the time, whereas now I'm on a different stage. Well,
the point with that was, obviously, you are in a high stress job. It's the hours are insane, but yet you still find quality time for your kids. And I know a lot of guys probably listening to this who are thinking, shit, like, I work 9 to 5 and I've got all this free time on night time, and I'm not putting that effort in. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to what you were saying, is you actually really enjoy what you do. And I think that is probably the key, because if you hated what you did, you probably wouldn't want to spend time with the kids, because it would all be about you then. But because you're so full of passion and enthusiasm for what you do, you can spread that to everyone else around you. It's amazing how it works.
I think you're right, actually. It's easy to do things you enjoy. And these are they're little people, they're developing, they've got personalities, they've got characters, and you do have an influence. And they're both very different, but they're both sporty. We enjoy the outdoors, going for walks, playing board games. I think board games are fantastic. I think, rather than sitting in front of, we play video games, but board games, you get to know about people's strategy and tactics, how they interact. And anybody who knows us, they buy us for Christmas a new board game, and then we end up playing it. And that project of developing people is fantastic. It is. It's enjoyable. So it's not a chore. Just recently, Sebastian wanted a bike jump. So I made a bike jump, pretty poor bike jump, to be honest. But anyway, there's a chap up there. We've got a big caravan at Beadnell, and one of the guys there, Aidan, who lives in the next caravan, he's a very, very handy man, and he made a huge bike jump. Nice. Spent all day making this bike jump, and then Sebastian had a go. And you do stuff like that, and it's great. But I think you mentioned there, work's very full on. But again, it's about having that work time, about having that family time. But it's really important as well, both Anna and I know and feel this, you need some time to yourself. Yeah. You need a little bit of time to yourself to be able to just let that computer that is your brain reboot. And that can be either me going for a run, or it could be doing some fitness session in the gym, which you go at work, or it could be reading a book, or it could be, for example, just recently I watched that thing on TV, The Gods of Tennis. All right, Navratilova, Chris Lloyd, Borg and McEnroe. And that was great. Just completely switched off, and I call that, it's another one of those sound bites, it's called the 4-to-1 rule. So the 4-to-1 rule is that if you do something and you lose yourself in it, when you come out of it, you may think, oh, I've just been doing that for an hour. And actually it's been 4 hours. Or 10 minutes and 40 minutes, whatever else. And that's what that does. I think it's like switching your iPad off and on.
It's nice. It feels nice.
It feels nice. And it's really, really important. And you need to have that time to be able to do that.
Would you describe that as peace?
I would describe it as your central processing unit is really slowed down. And so if that's peace, that's absolutely right. And I tend to find it when we talked about decisions before, because I make, and lots of people do, but I make a lot of decisions every day.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes if the brain's a little bit cloudy, for whatever reason, those decisions, it's more tricky. Whereas actually when you've had that peace, when you've had that reboot, there is clarity. And decisions, it's just really quite clear and obvious what should be done. And that can be at work, or that can be in external factors or in external places. Yeah,
no, I 100% agree. And I think with phones and stuff now, it's very hard to switch off. Like scrolling on your phone is not switching off. It's in fact, it's triggering your brain even more so. And iPads, phones, TVs, like even sitting too close to the TV. But what most people do is, you said you sat and you watched that show about tennis, right? Did you scroll while you watched that show?
No, not at all. I think, do you know what scrolling is
doom scrolling, we call it.
Doom scrolling. I like it. I think it's mindless. Absolutely mindless. I mean, phones are good. Phones are good for discovery. For example, it may be, I want to find out about so-and-so. And we had some... what did we have recently with Sebastian? We had some shellfish, and we bought some, and we went home and cooked it. And Sebastian, what do they look like with their shell on? Ding ding ding.
Google.
You can have a little look, and the next thing you're reading about them, and etc. etc. That's great. Just being on some social media site and scrolling, I think what that is, that's people feeding you information rather than you finding out information. So
it's consuming. Yeah, it's funny that you said that. I saw Oppenheimer last night, and the first thing I did when I came out was start Googling the atom bomb and stuff. Yeah. But it's handy, and it adds context to things, and I think that's a good way. Brilliant. It's long, and it's more complicated than I thought. I think I should have brushed up on more history. Like, I knew my history, like I'm a big war fan, but I think I needed to know a bit more, and I need to know a bit more about Oppenheimer himself. But I definitely recommend it. It definitely deserves the hype that it's got. Next up is Barbie. I've seen Barbie on Wednesday, so that's going to be
actually, that's incredible. That's the sort of like sublime and the ridiculous, isn't it? Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out together. Maybe someone's decided to put them head to head, or what? They have,
they have Barbieheimer or something like that, or Barbieheimer, something like that they're calling it. But because they both released on the same day. But I also found out that apparently, remember Mamma Mia?
Oh my god!
And they released.
Well, I do remember it. I'm never going. Do you know what? Actually, the 3 hours of my life I'm never going to get back. One is Mamma Mia and one is Dirty Dancing. Honestly.
Are you not an ABBA fan?
Let's just say actually, when I say to the kids when they go to somebody else's house for tea and someone says, "Do you like this?" The answer is, you don't say, "No, I don't like it." You say, "I prefer other things."
Right.
I prefer other things.
You go at it, fair enough. Well, yeah, they released Mamma Mia and The Dark Knight on the same day 15 years ago.
Oh, right.
And that was what point I was like, that's also like the same thing. That's very different.
Do you know what? That could be that could be one of those questions, it's like bourbons or custard creams. It's, Mamma Mia or The Dark Knight. Or Oppenheimer or Barbie.
The Dark Knight.
I'm sure you're a Dark Knight. Oppenheimer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm
the world at war.
Just Christopher Nolan. Yeah, Christopher Nolan I think is a great director. But anyway, off tangent. So the next thing I want to ask you is the nitty gritty stuff, right? The stuff that people are probably listening to this for, which is about the surgeries themselves. Right. Yeah. So obviously I know you can only say so much about them. You can only give off certain details, what have you. But I want to know: do you remember the first surgery that you ever led, and what was it?
So when you are a trainee, you are allowed to do your own cases,
right?
And so it would have just been a simple hernia operation, just a groin hernia,
right?
And
do you remember that for certain, or is that?
It was actually. It was at James Cook Hospital down in Middlesbrough, and I was on my own doing a list. The consultant was away, and I could do hernias, but I was in charge of that theatre, and that is a different feeling. It's a very different feeling actually doing cases completely by yourself without anybody else around. I mean, it was absolutely fine from a safety point of view, but it is a different sort of feeling, and the amount of mental energy it took to be able to get through the list. And I think that's the first time I did any surgery myself, but probably more intense was when you become a consultant and then you are doing major cases on your own. Now, there's always somebody in the hospital to call if need be, but you were in charge of the theatre, doing a major case, and the type of surgery I do is that if things go wrong, they can go wrong very quickly and dramatically, which means people can have adverse events on table. Touch wood, it happens extremely rarely, but the potential is there. Whereas if you're doing a hernia, that's not the case. You know, the range of things going wrong is very, 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 very minimal. Yeah,
hernias are quite common now. Like my dad's had one, and he had the operation. He's got the scars and stuff. Yeah,
it's you know, you'd never be complacent, but you're not going to have that potential for drama. So I remember doing the first case, and I was absolutely shattered after it because I've been concentrating with that focus for so long that my adrenal glands must have been pumping for about 6 hours. And then I finished the case, and it was just like I'd done a marathon.
Is that how long it took? 6 hours to...
6 hours, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Whereas now, I did a similar case last Monday, and it took about 3 hours 20, something like that.
Is that like a standard time for the surgeries that you do, like 3 to 6 hours? Is that the kind of standard time we're looking at?
Depends what type of surgery it is. So a major pancreas or liver resection, probably between 2.5 to 4.5 hours. Liver transplant, maybe around about 4 to 5 hours, maybe a little bit less. So yeah, it's the lengthy operations. They're not just in and out type of situations.
Do you have a favourite that you prefer to do, where one comes in and you're like, yes?
Well, I suppose at the moment it would be a robotic distal pancreaticosplenectomy, which is in fact taking the distal end of the pancreas away with the spleen, usually for a cancer, using a robot, using a Da Vinci Xi robot, which have come on the scenes over the last...
Nice.
Well, they've been around for a while, but certainly taking off now.
What is that? How does that work?
So
give us the ins and outs of the surgery. I'm curious.
So the ins and outs of that is that the patient's obviously asleep on the table, and instead of the surgeon standing next to the patient, they sit on a chair in a console, holding sort of hand devices on a gantry. And what you do when you move those hand devices, a little bit like this, and you can twist them and turn them with a clutch, is that controls a robot. The robot is on a stand, and it has various arms with thin, narrow instruments that go through small incisions in the patient, into the patient itself. So you can view these, and you have a 3D vision screen, and when you move your hand and rotate it, it rotates the instrument inside the patient. And
this is the future of this.
It's amazing. I mean, the robots have been around for a while, but it's certainly now they're becoming much more commonplace, and the technology is better. It's a little bit like, I don't know how old you are, Adam, but it's a little bit like the first robots were like the Sinclair Spectrum or the Commodore 64 or the Commodore Amiga. I'm going up in age to see
Commodore got me.
Or BBCB or something like that.
I'm 27, so I know like a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit out, but like I know what they are. Yeah.
So it's like the PlayStation 1 maybe. So we'll go there. Whereas now you're on PlayStation 5, which is absolutely crazy, miles away from 1, and the robots will just get better and better and better. And the benefit of the robot is that it's 4D vision, super clarity. When you rotate your hand, if I rotate it 90 degrees, you can have the sensitivity in the robot and it turns 25 degrees. So it's much more specific. And a little bit like, do you remember Doom?
Yes.
Right, so Doom, you could take off an arm and put another arm on.
Yeah.
With a different device.
It's like that. Oh, okay, so
you can take it off and put a different thing. You can put a Liger clipper on, a stapler, you can put a dissector, you can put a bipolar burner on it.
It'd be like R2-D2 performing surgery on you, wouldn't it? That's what it'd be like.
A little bit like that. There's probably a better example in a Star Wars droid, actually.
There is a hospital droid at Star Wars. There is a hospital droid. There is, isn't there? And they have like the needles and stuff. Yeah, There is.
What does R2D2 stand for?
I don't know.
I think I'm going to get told off for this.
It's at Rome something, isn't it?
No, it's Real 2 Disc 2.
Real 2 Disc 2.
Yeah, because apparently...
Oh, it was on the side of... Yeah.
It was on the side.
I'm a Star Wars fan. I should know this.
Come on, man.
I should know this.
How long is a Superstar Destroyer?
Oh, God, I don't know that. I don't
16
know
kilometres.
How do you know that?
I've got the Star Wars technical
So
journal.
you're a big Star Wars fan, I
No,
take it.
not a big Star Wars technical. Not a big Star Wars fan. And it's one of those things that, in 1977 I was 5 and I went to go and see with my granddad.
Nice.
I got 2 ice creams, 2 admissions, I got changed from £1.
Wow, nice.
So it's stuck in there. It's one of those things that goes into
You remember.
memory.
I like that. Do you know how big the circumference of the Death Star is, or is that too far?
It's coming back now.
I don't have an answer. Maybe we should get our phone out and Google it, doom scroll it, yeah. Maybe.
I don't know that, actually. I don't know that.
I don't either, but it's interesting that because I remember you watch these shows and you think that we'll never get to that stage where we've got robots operating on us, but now we do.
It's where we are, and actually these robots, they are some of the additional benefits now is that you can give an agent intravenously to the patient before the operation. It's called Firefly, and it's got a special fluorescence, which means that it sticks in tumour cells, so you can actually see the tumour cells within the structures themselves, or where the mass is. There is new technology coming in whereby you can fuse MRI and CT images, which then overlay the image that you're seeing into sort of like a skeletal structure where there are blood vessels, arteries, veins, and bile ducts. So it's not completely CGI, but it's essentially guiding where you do your operation.
So you don't nick anything.
So you know where the tumour is in related to other structures. You don't hit any vital structures. You can have a very clear operative plan about what you're doing.
Wow.
And so it's technology. It's better for the patients because it's smaller incisions. Better for the surgeon because actually you're sitting down rather than standing over the patients.
Yeah.
And also, we touched on it before about learning something new.
Yeah.
And this is new.
Oh,
it's a new technique, and it's just you want to learn it because it's inbuilt in me and inbuilt in lots of surgeons to learn those new things and be as good as.
I feel like as soon as they told you that you could do surgery with a robot, you were like, "Yep, I'm volunteer straight away. I'm in there. Bring me some Star Wars. Bring me some lightsabers."
That's it. I like. Good link. You've done this before. So we went over. Me and colleague Steve White and other people, some of the nursing team went over to Paris, did some training. I've been over to Pisa to watch one of the European, a very experienced European surgeon over there, and Steve's been various other places, and now the next generation, Gurab and Sanjay, have been to other places as well. So it's getting bigger and bigger.
Interesting. So the next one I have for you is: do you remember any specific surgeries that maybe went really wrong, or anything that went, for lack of a better term, tits up? Anything that sticks out in your mind that you can talk about?
Yeah, I think there is. I think before we say that, it's a case of just another one of those thoughts I have is that when you do major surgery, it's extremely rare to go from being absolutely fine to absolutely, for want of a very, tits up.
Yeah.
So it's about learning when those little errors are starting to occur, because a little one goes to a medium-sized one, which goes to a bigger one, which then goes to a really big one. So first point is about the learning to identify those, stop, check where we're at.
Yeah.
But there was one situation I remember a number of years ago, and I was called down to a theatre. And I was called down to a theatre where there was an operation that was going on with some different surgeons. And clearly there'd been... things hadn't gone quite so well. I was called into it, and the theatre was extremely noisy and busy. There was 4 surgeons around the table. There were about 3 anaesthetists. There was lots of scrambling going on. And... I'm sort of at the stage of my career I do tend to call if things are going wrong inside the abdomen.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of experience in dealing with these situations, and I don't shout. I never shout. Everybody knows me. I can count on, unless I'm shouting when England are going to win the Ashes, but that's a different thing, or at the television when they're playing rugby. I might have actually almost swore as well. I said, something is in charge of this theatre, because it was just mayhem. So people stopped, and I actually took some leadership in that theatre to assess what the situation was happening. I don't want to go into too many details.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But let's put it this way: there was a lot of bleeding, and once I'd assessed what the situation was, I established who was in the anaesthetic, who was managing that, if we got enough blood, and made a decision, an assessment and a decision. We have to make a bold move here to actually save this patient's life. Yeah. And the bold move would require assistance from colleagues on the operating table, and a very a sort of a change of some of the equipment we had, the clamps we had, to be able to access the defect in the blood vessel, to be able to control the bleeding. But there would have been a lot of bleeding while we did that, so we had to make that bold move. And I think what helped was me coming into it afresh. So I wasn't fatigued. I hadn't been involved in the case. I could
you fresh set eyes.
Knowing I've been involved in this sort of situation before, and backing myself that we could get through this, which we did, and the patient actually was fine at the end of it. So we want to be able to get that out there to say there was a good outcome. But
that's always good news.
But what you may or may not be interested in, I remember getting scrubbed in. So someone calls you down. First thing I say, do you want me now, in 5 minutes, or just to look in a few minutes? And they said, we want you right now, get down. I remember running through the hospital, going and getting changed as quickly as possible, and I opened the theatre door that goes into the scrub room. So it's not into theatre, but it's like
just before. Yeah.
And then looking through the window, and it was just carnage in there. And I thought, right, this is going to be one of those situations. Extremely rare, but they happen. And I remember getting scrubbed in. I remember sort of, so you're scrubbing in like this, and there's a stainless steel thing there. It's not a mirror, but there's a stainless steel thing there. And I was looking at myself in that mirror while I was getting scrubbed in, and thinking, right. And I remember my heart rate being quite high when I got in, because you're going, oh my goodness, right. And there's something inside me that when I just not challenged, that's the wrong word, presented or faced with some potentially stressful situation, my heart rate goes down. And I remember just looking in that mirror there and just looking at myself. I know it sounds a bit crazy, it's almost like Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver or something in a slightly different setting, but the heart rate just came down. I don't know why. It's just maybe I've done it so many times, or that's who I am. And then I went into that theatre, and I could manage the situation.
Because it wouldn't have been good for you to go in with a high heart rate, because you would have just added to the carnage.
Absolutely.
Really. So you had no choice, really. But I think maybe that is muscle memory kicking in. You were like, I know what this situation requires.
It is muscle memory, and it's also because I have done it before, and I've done it. I suppose you could say I've done it before in situations in sport, for example. Clearly, much lower tariff situation. But I can do it in that environment as well. And also, because I've done, I am experiencing that forum. When I go into theatre, I think there's a sense as well that actually, because I'm there and I'm calm, other people become calmer.
Yes.
So I have that effect on people. Now, I'm not the only person who has that. It's not like I've got a super individually, only me's got that gift, but certain people have that ability. Yeah. And I can see in the next generation of surgeons coming through, some people have it a lot, some people have a little bit, some people don't have it. And, there has to be somebody or a small number of people who can manage that situation.
Yeah. Well, I do have a question coming up actually about you and your team, but we'll get to that in a bit. But I'm just curious, when it comes to the amount of case, obviously you had like near 30 years experience doing this. Has there ever been a case that really maybe it's affected you emotionally? Now, I know you kind of have to take some of the emotions out of it a little bit, I would imagine, but is there anyone that really sticks with you that you remember, that whether it's for good or bad, it could be either, just one that's really stuck with you, a case that you remember that's really touched you emotionally?
Yeah, I think the one I would say was a patient who, again, it's a number of years ago, and it was a young girl, and she had a huge mass in the liver. and the mass was pre-malignant, so it needed to be taken out.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question it needed to be taken out. And she was somebody who was either in sixth form or just in college after. So pretty young.
Yeah.
And did the operation, and the operation went well, and she went home.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of months later, she represented with some deranged blood tests. And what had happened was that, slightly technical to explain, but I'm taking such a large chunk of liver away, the liver that's remaining grows.
Yeah.
Called hypertrophy.
Yeah.
And it grows. The liver's a fantastic organ, and the liver is swollen to literally twice the size of the remnant bit that are left inside. And because of that growth, the vein that was draining the liver had become kinked, a little bit like a candy wrapper. You know, a candy wrapper.
Oh, twisted. You're right.
Twisted and clotted. And it's quite an unusual thing to happen. It's not really. It's only virtually happened one or twice in my career. And so we had to perform a number of procedures through interventional radiology to clear the clot.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I wasn't even on call that week, and she was an inpatient, and I got called every single night about her, to go and see her, to speak to IR, to get it cleaned out, etc., etc. It was successful to clear it out, but then it clotted. We put a stent in, and it still clotted off. And then one of the major blood vessels clotted off. So I had to do an operation, take that clot out.
Yeah.
So I'm now invested in for a full week. It's virtually been every night with doing operations. Yeah. And then the liver started to fail.
Right. And
the only thing which was going to help her survive or save her life was a liver transplant.
Right.
And there are very strict criteria back then, well there is now, but there are criteria about who can get a transplant.
Mm-hmm. There's like a list to wait, isn't there?
There's a list of waiting, and this lady could only be put on in a certain category.
Right.
And so if you've been through the assessment process and you're on the waiting list, you're on the waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
But this lady had not been assessed in the waiting list. She was actually in what's called a variant category, which means that you do not get the chance to be offered all the livers that are available across the country.
Okay.
You only have livers which are available within your constituency, which is the northeast. And
right. Okay.
Only a specific category of liver as well. It's getting a little bit technical, but what I'm saying is the chance of her getting a liver to be transplanted into her within the time frame that she needed, which is about 72 hours, were very slim.
Yeah.
We put her on the list. We registered her. She got a liver offer that night, believe it or not.
Wow.
Which was absolutely incredible. So our team went and retrieved it, and I went in and put that liver in that patient. And the operation went well. And the dramatic bit is, and I still remember this, and clearly I'd been discussing with the family for a long period of time over this very, very ups and down week, was there were, out of ITU, there were double doors. These double doors are these doors which open automatically, but they're quite slow.
Right.
And there's double doors, but they're glass.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking out of ITU, and I must have looked wrecked, because I was in some greens. I wasn't in theatre garb, but I was in blues, and looking a bit dishevelled, and I was actually probably not looking particularly elated, because I was just thinking, God, I'm just absolutely worn out here. Mm-hmm. And I was walking out to tell the mum and the family that everything had gone well. She was the other side of those double doors, as in two sets. Mm-hmm. Couldn't hear me, but could just see me. And she saw me and thought I was coming to deliver some bad news.
Because you look
I looked dreadful and looked as though I was about to go and say something, and she just went hysterical.
Wow.
Not in an uncontrolled way, but it was really emotional.
Yeah.
And that made me, and I was just thinking, no, I want to say everything's gone well, but the doors were taking ages to open. It was like dramatic. And she stood there, and the first thing I said, it's gone well. and she just like collapsed onto her knees. And
Oh, God.
both of her sisters.
The
just
emotional
grabbed her.
roller coaster she just went through there.
That was just it was an emotional roller coaster for me just seeing
Yeah.
it. So that was a week I remember, and the good thing is that she's actually I don't see her anymore because I've discharged her from my care a long time ago, but she went and finished the course off and was carrying on with her life. So I think
Amazing.
that was a week the week I won't forget. I don't know.
No, I can imagine. At least it had a happy ending though, and
At
it wasn't.
least
You
it
won't
had a
forget it
happy
because it, something terrible happened. So, no, but I like that story. That's really touched me as well. Yeah, that makes me. There's got to have a comedic element.
As well, it was like in the middle of the night as well, or early morning. It was sometime that was that weird light and everybody had been up all night and there was nobody else around, and it was pretty dramatic. But anyway,
amazing. So, what do you think? Like, just as a quick, because I'm curious, what do you think's the most rewarding part of your job? Like, what speaks to you the most, and what keeps you coming back for more?
I think that changes over your career.
Mm-hmm.
And at the start of your career, it is technically doing the operation. You have done that operation, you've done it well, the patient's done well, that gives you a buzz, that gives you a high, that gives you a stimulus to do all the other stuff which isn't perhaps quite so good. So that is very, very rewarding. And if you don't have that reward, don't do surgery, because actually you'll not put up with all the other stuff you need to put yourself through. Now I honestly get a lot of reward from assisting my surgical colleagues doing operations and seeing them develop. I'm still doing the operations, but I'm assisting, and they're developing their skills, and I'm trying to give them the benefit of the things that I perhaps haven't done quite so well in the past about. Don't become overconfident. There's a pace in the operation. Be efficient. Decision making. That gives me a buzz. And also, it's about service development, and it's about actually, if I do an operation, I help one person. Yeah. If I develop a service, I help 10 people, 20 people, 50 people.
It spreads out,
and it spreads out. Yeah. And actually, part of it, I know you're into positive talk, thinking, talking, if that's the right expression.
We'll go with that.
We'll go with that.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. I think, the way that your brain works in general in life, but also in surgery, is extremely important. And actually just seeing, I won't say the penny drop, but just planting the seed or opening the door into a different room for people, because they have to go and the plant has to develop itself, or the person has to go into the room. Yeah. But just to give people the understanding that it is important, that rewards as well. Yeah.
Well, if there's no reward, you're not going to want to keep going.
Not going to want to do it. And also, do you know, in you look at your life in a package, it's not work-life balance, it's life balance. Yeah. Life is just life. And actually, developing your kids and having that relationship with your wife and developing your kids are the two highest goals to have. Yeah. Everything else feeds into that. But what I talked about before at the start was just the work aspect, but it is coupled with those things as well. So that's where I get my reward from. But I do still get reward from doing those operations. Yeah,
helping people seeing things through. Yeah, amazing. Another thing that must have been quite rewarding was being on TV. So let's get into this bit.
Do you know what? We were coming towards the end, and I was thinking he's going to forget it, but no.
No, come towards the end as well.
Yeah, no. TV, Geordie Hospital. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a few more questions for you, mate. Wait, we're still. What are we, like an hour in, nearly? Yeah, we're an hour in. We're still going good.
We're still going good.
So how did that come about? How did that opportunity happen? Like, tell me about that.
So clearly Channel 4 had approached the organisation, and I'm led to believe they've approached them in the past, but anyway, this time it was, yes, we'll do something. And being clinical director of surgical services, the part of the trust team contacted me and said we need to think about some surgeons being involved in this. And I said, that sounds fine, that's okay. I can organise a meeting where people who are keen on doing it can meet the Channel 4 individuals, and we'll just take it from there. So I organised the meeting. We're in a room. There's about, 5 to 10 surgeons there, and some of the Channel 4 people, and they're just bouncing ideas around. And clearly the Channel 4 people were just scoping out and seeing who'd be good, seeing who was too loud, who was not loud enough, who was this, that, and the other. I don't know. And so I was more facilitating really rather than saying anything at all. I really didn't think I was just there to. These are the people who were quite keen on it. And I think some of my surgical colleagues when they were there sort of tried to give me a little bit of a hard time, just banter, and I don't mind a bit of banter. I can handle myself in that sort of environment, and so we're having a bit of repartee, and so I think maybe the Channel 4 sort of saw that, and I was quite relaxed and didn't think anything else of it. Just that's it, that's job done. Anyway, I was walking around the hospital and going to ITU or something, and my phone went, and it was, we're just Channel 4, we're just up in the seminar room again. It's like 2 weeks later. Do you want to come up and just sort of have a quick chat? And I thought, they're going to come and tell me who they decided on. Are you happy with those people? Whatever else. So I said, we just want to have a little chat with you about just your role and things. I thought, right, okay, and we might just take a little film here. I was like, honestly, I was so busy with being on call. I just thought, I just want to get this over and done with.
Yeah, you weren't thinking about being a TV star.
I was just not thinking about it. I just thought, right, let's have a chat with this person, nice person, bang, here we go. And that's when I mentioned a number of different things. One was the parking spot, about being the first place in the grid.
Right.
And the other one was to say that almost anything in life can have an analogy with boxing. And so I just was rabbiting on about all these things, a few of the things I'm talking to you about.
Right,
so I just left it there after about 12 minutes, bang, thanks, job done. Right, what was I doing in ITU? And then they came back to me and said, "We really like a couple of your stories," because obviously there was the hip story as well about having my
you had your own operation,
And so I think they Channel 4 had probably sat down in a room. They'd had an angle. Mr. French's got the parking spot. He's the director. He's got his hip done. He's got some weird ideas about stuff. Let's stick him on. Him on film.
What I loved about it was the fact that they in one of the episodes they follow you into the gym to do the workout. Was that awkward to film? Did they just ask? Did you just go about it and they filmed it, or did they say, "Can you go and do this, and then we'll film this"?
No. They said because during one of the previous filming things, I said, "Oh right, I'm going to go." Brought my bag down to the filming thing, left it over there, and said, "I'm going to the gym afterwards." And the guy's name, his name was Alex Gower, and he said, "I'll come to the gym with you." And I said, "Oh, right, fair enough. Whatever. I'm just."
You were just chilled with the whole thing.
Doesn't matter to me. And they had to sort of get the people in the gym to consent to be part of it. But I go to the gym a lot. Actually, it gives you that peace. It gives you that reboot. Keeps physically fit, because if you're physically fit, you're mentally strong as well, and vice versa. So. But I made sure that the weights I'd done were a little bit higher than I normally do, because in case anybody looked at the weights, they were a reasonable amount.
You were like, I'm just gonna like 45s each hand.
These are 30s actually. Yeah.
You're like, before you turn the camera on, let me get a pump on first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But was it weird having the cameras through? Because they'd filmed a hernia operation, I know. And they obviously filmed you interacting with the patient. Did it impact the way you spoke to them at all? Did you overthink it at all, or was it just like, this is cameras, it's fine? I
think there's the potential to overthink it, but it's like many things. I've done it so many times before that again it's that heart rate thing, and it goes down, and you just once the patient sees that you're calm, they become calm. I tend to have that ability to be able to do that, so wasn't too bad. I think they were a little bit more nervous than I was. And in fact, in terms of the surgery itself, I've done live surgery before. It's beamed across to different countries or to seminar rooms for people to watch. I've had a microphone on and speaking while I'm actually operating as well. So I think, you look back and would I be able to do that day one as a consultant? No, but 16 years as a consultant, I've done those things. So therefore, your muscle memory is there, and it is slightly different actually, because it's film and it's camera, and but once you get to once it becomes slightly familiar, then you think, right, that's okay.
You forget about it.
Actually, that's one of those things that gives you the buzz. It's actually something like this. I've done a podcast before, I've been on radio before, but I thought, well, challenge myself. Let's come and do it. But as well as the chap, you're a very nice chap.
No, thank you very much.
I
feel the same, mate. I feel the same.
you know, it's about challenging yourself. So going back to the question, did I feel nervous? No. Did it impede the interaction? I don't think so. No, not at all.
Did you go back and watch? Have you watched these, or were you just like, no, I don't want to see it?
So the biggest fan of this was my mum.
Yeah.
Do you know what? And you do these things for your mum, and my late father would have really liked to watch it as well as my grandparents would have done. But my mum was the biggest fan, and do you know what? If I was a mum and your kid did that, I thought I probably would have think that's pretty good. Did I think it was? It's just another thing that I've done, really. To be honest,
think you did great, because
I appreciate that.
You were very chill as well. That was what I appreciate about it. Was you were very relaxed about it. You were just like,
yeah. So I think it was good for the Northeast. I think it was. It wasn't a particularly technical program. It was more about the whole hospital, which was the right thing. I think they got lots of different angles on. I really enjoyed it because it was a new thing. Great people, you know, the camera people, sound people, runners, whoever else. They were enjoyable to work with. Different environments. The one thing was, though, that they said, right, and they have this, it's called the 500 to 1 rule, and that's actually they take 500 minutes of footage for 1 minute.
Yeah.
I don't think it was quite that, but it was almost that. God, the number of times they had to
redo stuff, yeah.
Not so much, well, the biggest reason why they had to redo things was because we were in the room doing the filming and sound, and it was in the chaplaincy, actually. And then above the chaplaincy, there was a pipe which gurgled every so often, and B, a toilet. And would you believe that the toilet in the chaplaincy is used a lot? And I don't know who uses it. Unless the vicar's got a prostate problem or something. But
they just know it's going to be free, you know what I mean? It's just like,
So we had to retake it for that. But anyway, yeah. Did you enjoy watching it?
Yeah, it was really good. Because obviously I'll be watching a lot of shows at the minute to do with... Obviously I told you on the phone watching The Good Doctor.
Of course.
Which is about the autistic doctor, which is really good. I highly recommend it. I know obviously you might not want to watch those shows if you're doing this day in and out. But it's really interesting. Obviously it's American, so it's very much shot like an American show.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely enjoyed watching the realness of it. And obviously, I'd only met you the once, and I was like, I want to get a bit more context of who you were. And I think it really just showed how relaxed you were. And I would have been like, if I go in for surgery, I'd want the doctor from the TV.
I appreciate that actually, because I was, you know what. You know, the kids were like, "Oh, Daddy's on TV," and then about 3 minutes later, it was like, "Oh, Daddy's on TV. Right, I'm off to do something else."
Well, it was over that quickly.
It was over there. It was just like, "Oh, whatever." I mean, goodness gracious, the expectations of them. No, we did watch it. I think, you know, I look back and it was who I am. I think there's the potential here is to be edited into something that you're not. But I am quite relaxed, very relaxed, and that I think that came across. And
definitely.
What was nice as well was in theatre. It came across that it's a relaxed atmosphere, and we've talked about this before in the way that people work best when they're focused but relaxed.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's about moving through the gears, and sometimes you have to be extremely focused, but then you can sort of come back down through the gears and be in a more relaxed environment. And I think that came across in the theatre. It wasn't just like a library with that beep going of the patient's heartbeat, which is just...
It's kind of creepy. That puts more pressure on it, isn't it?
It puts more pressure on, and actually people don't work better when they're under the amount of pressure, or, you know, the surgeon says to someone in the corner, "Stop talking, I want silence in here." It's like, come on, people, you know, obviously if it gets a bit noisy in theatre, I say, guys, can we just keep focused? And but that's part and parcel of being a surgeon. It's not just the technical aspects. That's why it's called an operating theatre, is because it's almost like a performance. Clearly it was a performance because people used to watch. It was a theatre.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But it's called that theatre management and setting the tone in theatre to get the best out of people.
So give me some examples of how you would do that. When you go in and you've got your team there, you know what you're all going to do. Like, how do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them on task? Like, how do you keep them calm? Like, what's your go-to methods?
So first thing is I have a little, not so much routine I go through, but I have some different tactics, and especially these days when the theatre teams change quite a bit.
Yeah.
Through rotation, people leaving, coming, whatever, and is to know everyone's first name. That's everybody in theatre. and to have a little bit of something, about each individual. Now, not their life story, but just something a little bit about them, that you've got some sort of little connection with them, and say hello to them in the morning, bring that up, whatever it is, just one sentence, that's all you need. So it just keeps everybody calm.
I think you mentioned at that speech there was a woman that came on your team, she liked surfing or something, and you would bring that up. It was something like that.
Yeah,
I think you mentioned in your speech.
There were a number of things, actually. There was a lady called Tracy, and she had a snake called Sid. I don't know much about Tracy, apart from she's a great lady. She's got a snake called Sid. So every time we used to say about Snid, there was, that's right, it's one of her sisters called Helen, and she lives at the coast, and she likes surfing, so we just have a little chat about that. It's just a nothing chat, but what that is a little psychological stroke. It's, yes, I value you as a person, that means you can talk to me.
It's good rapport, isn't it? Yeah.
Very, very good rapport. And the other thing I mentioned as well, I think, in that talk was when we walk into theatre, people are watching you as the surgeon, and if you walk in a slightly grumpy way, people think, oh, I'm not really grumpy, many people know me, I'm not grumpy really. But if you walk in and people are like, oh right, okay, could be a bad day, that's put him on the back foot. If you walk in with a positive attitude, now I'm not talking about high-fiving everybody, I'm just saying,
yeah, come on guys, yeah.
That might be a bit weird.
Yeah.
But it's about, right, guys, gonna have a good day today, it's a busy day, we're all going to work together, we'll get away at 5 and we'll do some good operations. Then actually it sets the tone. Sets the tone for theatre. So those are a couple of things that I do. I've mentioned jokes already. Yeah. Anybody new in theatre? So it has to have a joke. I've got a repertoire of really shit jokes.
How did they do that though? Like, because if you ask me to think of a joke, I was trying to think of one.
I must have had 15 minutes since I mentioned jokes before. So okay.
God.
I'll start off when I'll tell you a joke while you.
All right. Well, I think of one.
I think of one. Okay. So what's the protocol for falling downstairs?
No idea.
Step 1, step 4, step 7, step 9. You're laughing.
That's terrible jokes. I do love a good dad joke, but it's like when someone asks what's your favourite movie and you can't remember anyone. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's your favourite movie? You go, I forgot every movie.
Goodfellas.
Good movie, good choice. Fair enough.
There you go.
Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith, purely because it's the first movie I remember going to see in the cinema.
Honestly, Revenge of the Sith.
I think because it's the first. It's the first memory I have of going to see like a film in the cinema. I think I was like, what was it, 2005? God, I was in year 5. What have I been, like 6, 7, something like that.
Do you know what? You just hit me hard there, because that's just in retaliation for when I said 1977.
There you go.
That's just highlighting the difference. That's cruel but fair.
Well, if I'm going to think of a joke, I heard one the other day. I'll see if I can remember. Right, so it was a Spanish family have to give up their kids for adoption, but they want to keep in contact with them growing up. And over time, they grow up into teenagers. These two kids are separated, and eventually the parents get a postcard from one of their kids called Juan, and she sees the picture and she's like, I wish I could see my other son Amal. I wish I could see him as well. I've got a picture of Juan. And the dad says, well, when you've seen Juan, you've seen Amal.
That's brilliant.
I like it. Maybe I pushed
the punchline away too early.
Yeah, but I only heard it like the other day, but I was like, you know what? I quite like that.
That's good. We'll buy that.
You can have that. You can use that one in surgery. Maybe rejig it a bit so it sounds a bit better.
The only jokes I know are the ones I've got of other people, actually. And Adam, you'll be if stipulations allow and you want to come into theatre, then you can. I'll allow you to use that joke.
Thank you. I don't know how it'll go down. It might ruin the ambience of the theatre, but we'll see.
So the other thing, just while I was there, I was thinking this while I was listening to Planet Rock on the way here, is about music in theatre, and that's a sort of one of those issues we talked about before. Yes. And I do like music in theatre, not too loud, not too quiet, and it has various different purposes. One is that it's mainly about relaxation. To get the best out of staff and to provide A, the music, but B, just a conversation about the music, because people hate my taste in music generally, which is stuff like, imagine putting on Pink Floyd Animals or Iron Maiden or Megadeth or Metallica or...
That's my kind of music,
I thought I was just looking at...
the all black,
all black with some sort of motif around your...
do you know what that is? I've had no question. Do you know what? I wear this in every... I'll show this camera. I wear this in every... all the time.
There's 3 triangles. No, I don't know exactly the...
It's the sign of Odin, the Norse god. In it,
is that right?
His symbol is for knowledge and wisdom. So because he was ever searching for knowledge, wisdom, more information. That's why he ended up giving up his eye. He gave up his eye for information and for wisdom. So, and it reminds me to keep hunting for wisdom, to be insightful, to try and question things and come up with my own answers to things. So it stays pretty close to my heart there. So.
Do you know what? That's literally. It's not your heart on your sleeve. It's a value on your chest, isn't it? About living your life.
I like that value on your chest. I'm still on that.
Yeah.
You can steal my joke. I'll steal that line.
That's all right. This is called a swap shop.
There we go.
We've done it. But it's also humour in theatre with music, because you see, I'll put my music on the old, old Bluetooth and whatever else. And then the nieces I've worked with her a long time, James Prentice, he'll love it. I've just mentioned James online. He'll just put on something that I really hate. He'll put on stuff like Chaz and Dave greatest hits.
Oh God!
I mean, have Chaz and Dave ever had a hit? Never mind greatest hits. Or he'll put on mid-October. He'll start with Christmas carols or something. You're like, James, what are you doing?
I kind of like that. That would be me.
You're liking him already.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
And then sort of you might have got a theatre nurse who, because my phone's not there, and she said, I'll put some music on. And it's like, the best of summer Ibiza 2003.
Oh, Christ. No, I'm not with that. I'm not with that.
This banging out. But, it's just all music. But the thing about the music as well is it's almost like a signal. Because if I say, can we have the music off? Mm-hmm. Then automatically what I have said to everybody, right, this is a tricky bit of the operation. Mm-hmm. This is a bit we all need to concentrate. It may only be for 10-15 minutes, so we'll have the music off. Mm-hmm. So, for example, you're doing liver transplant, you're going on and off bypass. There's a really tricky bit on one of the venous structures in the abdomen, and it's. I don't have to say, everybody calm down, or everybody be quiet and concentrate. Mm-hmm. That's the signal people know. They know me well enough that's the case. And then when I put the music back on, they're like, so it's like we call that in surgery, that's called the sterile cockpit. So the sterile cockpit is when you're taking off and landing as a pilot, you do not talk about anything else other than landing and taking off. And that's like in theatre, you don't talk about your holiday, don't talk about anything else, you talk about the surgery itself. Mm-hmm. But to do that for 6 hours, your head will explode. Yeah. Sure, you just switch it on and off.
It's too much focus. See, I turn my music down when I'm looking for somewhere that I've never driven to before. When I'm in the car, so I turn it down so I can see better. But I can't imagine doing that in surgery. Sometimes I can't concentrate with music on. I find it quite distracting. So I can't imagine taking people's organs out or removing cancers and stuff to Metallica, Enter Sandman, and you're just slicing up someone's liver.
Yeah. I'm anti Death Magnetic at the moment.
Nice.
So I'm getting back into that. Although this is too old, I was Master of Puppets and Ride of Lightning and Justice for All.
Have you seen Master of Puppets made a comeback recently into the charts and stuff?
Is that right?
Yeah, it was in a show called Stranger Things. I don't know if you've ever seen that fantastic show. It's all set in the 80s, and one of the main characters plays it in a big battle, and it pushed that back up the charts, but it also pushed Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill. That came back in the charts as well because of the show. Right. And I was pleased to see Metallica getting some love for that again.
I think actually at home I have a Ride the Lightning T-shirt, which I don't wear very often because it's actually a picture of an electric chair. But anyway, that's another thing. Where were we going there? We were music we were talking about. No.
Yes, you were concentrating during surgery. Yeah.
That's right. Concentrated that length of time. I think the stage of career I'm at now, working memory wise, I don't have to use a lot of it to actually do an operation. Certain times I do. So actually I could be with a trainee, they can be doing the operation, I'm assisting them. It's a 4 or 5 hour operation. I'm concentrating intensely for maybe half an hour to an hour in different bursts. The rest of the time it's sort of autopilot. So I'm concentrating on the music. I can I can be relatively calm. If I talk to that trainee about what music we have been playing or what the conversation is, they've got no idea. They have been concentrating so hard, and that's normal.
That's good. That's a good thing.
That's how it should be, and I can move up and down throughout the gears as appropriate as well. And it's about me training that way to train people to the next people. Does that?
It's passing it down.
How to train?
No, it makes sense. Yeah, because when you train them, they will then pass that knowledge down of how they were trained down to the next.
Of course.
Yeah. Is there a song that is just a no-go in your in your surgery, in your theatre.
Yeah.
Is there a song that you're just like, no?
Spice Girls, When Two Become One. Honestly, they know that I
Is
don't
that
like
when you
that
do a
song.
transplant? Is that like
Hey,
two other
the
notes?
plumbing nurses know that I don't like that one, and it just starts to come on, and I'm just like, I even got to the stage that I refuses to actually continue operating and they turn it off. There's a standoff.
You're just like, this patient will bleed out. You turn that song off.
This patient's not going to have surgery on that song, and it's just like banter, but I suppose it's good banter.
Amazing.
Anyway.
So I briefly want to touch on.
That was very quick. I said that, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was.
I didn't have to think about
that
it.
song has a deep hatred in your heart there. But I just want to touch on briefly when I met you at the Newcastle talk, you spoke about the chimp paradox, and it was really interesting that you came along not to talk about surgery but to talk about the chimp paradox, but you melded them together really nicely. So do you read many books like that, and why was it the chimp paradox that you decided to? Why was that so important for you?
So the chimp paradox had an impact on me because I read it a number of years ago, and it's sort of, we talked about that door opening.
Yes.
And I did a postgraduate certificate of clinical leadership. Clearly, there was something which drew me to that, and I suppose it's about, I'd got better at surgery technically. Always never be complacent, but I'm comfortable doing those operations. So what else can I learn? I can learn about this. It's developing myself. Well, clinical leadership, let's do that. I've got one or two leadership positions. And during the course, there was Simon Sinek, Start With Why, and there was, which is a good book, The Chimp Paradox. And I read this book, and I just thought, crikey, that's pretty interesting. And of course, what happens then? It's just like an avalanche of things that you read about.
Yeah. You get into a spiral of
reading. You get into a spiral,
yeah.
and actually, it's great. You've got to be careful because sometimes when you read one book, you've got to read another 5.
Oh yeah.
And so just never be aware that you can actually, read them all. Obviously.
Yeah. If you want another book by Simon Sinek, his next one, Leaders Eat Last, I think it's called. It's sort of the follow up to Start With Why. That's also a really good one.
I haven't got that one.
It's more about like leadership and stuff than the internal stuff, but it's really good.
Right. Definitely. I'm always so one thing that we will do actually when I meet people is to ask them for a book review, and so I'll ask one from you, and maybe you'll give me that one, maybe another one, and I'll give you one back.
Absolutely.
A book recommendation, should I say, not a review.
This would be a 3-hour long podcast if I give you a review of a book.
Well, I mean, but I think they're great. I mean, and then it just sort of about what I liked about the chimp paradox were lots of things, but it's about that ability to be able to control how you respond. And I suppose it resonated within surgery because surgeons can and tend to be personality types pretty red. They're pretty, full on, and can have quite a strong reaction to things with strong opinions. And maybe the chimp is quite prominent in some of those responses, and quite often it's not the ideal way to handle something.
Yes. Just because for anyone that's not listening, I actually spoke about this in a previous episode. Someone else brought up the chimp paradox. It's the chimp represents your emotional part of your brain, doesn't it? Before it goes into the computer part of your brain, which processes it logically, you will always have an emotional response firsthand. Just to clarify that.
Sorry, yes, for those non-chimp paradox people.
Yeah, we're just talking about chimps. Like then people are going, what, like actual chimps?
Yeah, well, so it is. It's about understanding you will have an emotional response, and then not thinking that's bad, but it will occur. Letting that pass or controlling it, modulating it, then having a more measured response.
Yes.
And so I found that very, very useful in my understanding of situations and also how to understand other people. And then of course it just leads on to lots of other areas, and I had a huge I call them the psychopath years, where I just got really interested in psychopaths and went back to Henry Leclerc's original book, and I've got in fact, Anna says that's on the top of the back of the top shelf. You can't have that on display when people come into your house. A book on section on psychopaths, and then I got really into Spies of the Second World War with Kim Philby, and
I'll tell you one. Jumping on that, I'll tell you one book that I've got that it shocks a lot of people. I've got Hitler's book, Mein Kampf. I got it when I was in school.
Oh my God, is that right?
Yeah, I bought it when I was in school, just off Amazon. I then got eBay because I was really interested in what the hell was going through his mind. Not because not as a supporter, do you know what I mean? But as someone what drives someone to do that. And the book's an absolute mess. It doesn't make any sense. It's basically ramblings. I didn't even finish it. I read maybe a quarter, maybe it's just half, and then I was
Yeah.
like, this is just ramblings. But honestly, I should probably just give it up. But it's not something you just give to a charity shop. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
At the bottom of the
Yeah, you can't
bag.
just like slip this in and run away. But just like reading stuff like that though is powerful for sure. Yeah. Especially I think everyone go through a psychopath reading book phase.
I think you do really, because you sort of want to convince yourself you aren't one, and by the definition of wanting to read about it, you probably aren't.
Yes.
So yeah, there is that side, and then you go through different. I mean, I'm not going to go through all of, but I'm just always looking for different things, and different angles on stuff. And interestingly enough, so I read very, very little fiction. I just can't get on with fiction, and it's all non-fiction. And my son Sebastian, he's the same as my daughter Scarlett. She's just reads fiction, and lots and lots and lots of it. But again, it's just individual people do individual things.
Yeah, definitely.
So one book I would recommend to you, though, have you read John Ronson, The Psychopath Test?
No, but I've seen that book everywhere. It's got an interesting cover,
It's
isn't
like
it?
a brownish cover.
Yeah, he's got like spiky hair and the glasses
Yeah.
on. Yeah, I've seen that everywhere. I think I bought that for my friend actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I recommend reading that one. Actually, it's the start of it's just about human nature, and the definition that he says of a psychopath is someone who rolls out the red carpet to someone they don't like, to a place they don't want to go.
Oh, I like that. I've done a lot of research at the minute into a lot of the things I like to read. Big into a guy called Dr. David Buss,
Right.
who wrote the book Evolutionary Psychology. So it's big into like evolution and where certain thoughts and things come from, and you read that and you think we are just intelligent animals. Like you can't look at us as humans when you read that book. You're just like, okay, we are animals and we do things, biological drives. We have ridiculous thoughts, and like we're not as civilized as we think we are. We're all hairless murder apes is the term that gets thrown. Hairless murderer. So one of the most dangerous species on the planet, and we act like we're the shit. We act like we're the top of the food chain, and I always say, like, especially with a lot of men and stuff who refuse to kind of read this sort of stuff as well, like, because I find women are more open to talk about stuff like that, but a lot of men are very closed off, for like, oh, well, bit of a macho kind of thing. But it's like, yeah, like men think they're top of the food chain but can't wipe their piss off the toilet seat.
You mentioned that a couple of times actually about men and women and things, and I'd sort of view it slightly from a different angle, and that's about clearly there are men and there are women. We're all different, but it's, you've got your default way of behaving and acting.
Yes.
But actually, there are various different rooms in your house, and you may have a favourite room, and your favourite room may be the kitchen. Your partner's favourite room may be the front room. So actually, but it's still in one house. But you go to the front room, and your partner goes into the kitchen. So it's about successfully interacting within that particular room, and don't fix yourself into one room.
Play your strengths, because you get various different on averages, I guess you would say. Yeah.
So. You know your favourite room, but be able to interact in other ones. And sometimes you have to go into the cellar. That's not a very nice place. That's where the psychopath books come, because there are some people like that in this world. Yeah. And you have to go, I know what you're doing. I know you know that I know what you're doing, and that's going to have to stop. You're down in the cellar. I don't want to be down there very long, but I need to be able to survive in there. And I don't know. It's maybe the lines are a little bit more should be a little bit more blurred. This is your preferred environment, but you can interact over there. I don't know. I mean, I suppose you could say, do I go out drinking beer? Well, I did. I went to Seville with my mate who was 50. We had a lads trip over there. So you still do it, but so you can still go back.
There's not, you don't build a personality on it. You just visit and then you move on, kind of thing. Yeah. Definitely. I'm the same, because like I'm not much of a big. I used to love going out. Now I don't. If I could go visit that room, as we say, I could go out and have a good time and get drunk, but I don't do that anymore. I don't like to get drunk. I honestly find it a waste of money because it's so fucking expensive. It's like a $5
wait till you get to 51, the hangovers really kick in, man.
Oh god,
honestly.
I'm approaching 30, and I can already feel like I have a few glasses of wine and I'm like, I'm going to be sore for the next 36 hours. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to be sore, but it is true. You do visit these different rooms, but I always find that interesting in terms of how men act, how women act, what drives us, what thoughts we have, how we process things. And I just think it's one of the most fascinating things that we can study now, because we can, because it's like it helps you understand. Like one of the most important things I think you can ask in a relationship, which I think breaks a lot of relationships down at the minute, is if you don't ask, as a man, if your partner's upset, you say, do you want me to listen or do you want me to fix the problem? Because a lot of guys go like their partner comes home from work, there's a problem, they start maybe he's crying about it, or they're very passionate about it, and you start trying to fix it, and all you do is throw gas on the fire. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, do you want me to listen or do you want me to fix the problem? Because as men, we want to fix the problem, but as women, sometimes they just want to rant. Sometimes they just want to get it off and unload that emotional baggage. And as men, we have to be able to understand that. But if you don't read these sorts of books and delve into evolution and why we actually think the way we do, you're probably not going to have that awareness. So I think it definitely helps to know that these days, for sure.
I think it's when I was at university, I completely agree with you, by the way. When I was at university, if someone said to you, I'm doing psychology, you'd look at them and you go, well, I don't know, maybe it was me just looking at people, it's like, that's a bit weird. Doing psychology, they're a bit bonkers. And actually, psychology, the study of human behaviour and what drives it is A, fascinating to me and to other people, but B, extremely important.
No,
and,
absolutely.
That's what one of the things you're just talking about there, is that particular interaction. And I would get that when people come into my office and they say, I've got a problem. I'll say, oh, right, okay, and I just listen. And all I do is I just if you want to keep people talking, then all that you do is just repeat the last 3 words that they've said. And they'll carry on. And I'm just like, I call it like a blowout. So this person wants to blow at me, so I'll just repeat the 3 words, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then they'll stop, and then they'll look at me and they'll go, oh, I've been talking for a long time, oh, thanks very much, and walk out.
That's all they need.
That's it. That's all they need. And so what you're saying is that sometimes that
it's that reassurance that you're also listening as well, and you're not just staring. That's why I think it's difficult with a podcast as well, because obviously for people listening, they don't see us unless they're watching the video version, right? So it's like, for me, I've got to go, yep, and I acknowledge what you're saying. I look you in the eye, not like I don't stare at you like this, you know what I mean? Because that'd be weird. That's weird, yeah. But like it happens. It has to be. I have to be communicating.
Have you heard of the love languages?
What, the 5 love languages? Yeah.
You have heard of those. And of course, that's one of them, is that basically we're talking about being in the moment with that person, which actually is a sign of respect, and also
it's quality time, isn't it?
Quality time with that person.
Because what is it? I'm not a full believer in them, in terms of everyone has.
Just another thing.
They're just another form of expression. Yeah, I think some people take them too literally. It's the same as the secret.
What is this, sort of like acts of service,
gifts,
physical contact, gifts,
physical touch,
words of affirmation.
Yeah. It's an interesting, and I think everyone has all 3. I mean, I personally, if you buy me something, I'm your best friend for life.
There you go, man.
Because I have lots of fame.
Your partner's actually a gift.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just like, well, you can't hear it. But the gift, like getting gifts and giving gifts, is something for me that's always spoken. Do you have one specific that maybe sticks with you?
I'm probably more of an acts of service person. I think, actually, although I'm sort of understanding that is not the only one to do. But yeah, I that's how I sort of operate, really, I suppose.
So if I clean your dishes for you, you'll appreciate me a bit more.
Well, I think. Sorry, I was thinking the other way around, that I would.
Oh,
so,
you prefer
that's why I deliver it, really.
Right.
I'll work really hard, and I'll do this and I'll do that and do the other.
Gotcha.
And, but sorry, I took it the other way.
Yeah. No. To be fair, it works the same way, because you could have a love language that you prefer to do, and then also one that you prefer to have done to you as well. I would imagine so. Yeah.
I think words of affirmation make me feel a bit uncomfortable.
When someone compliments you.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like I'd rather be sort of understand that it's almost like that very, very small nod from somebody means a lot more than someone coming over and saying, Jeremy, you've done a really good job there, and etc. etc. It's that knowing look from the anaesthetist when the case has gone really well, or from whoever, just a little
and they're like,
yeah. Does that make sense?
It's a very man thing, isn't it? Just to have the nod. It's the nod, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love it. For anyone watching, we're just nodding and smiling at each other. But just to sort of round up, I'm curious because obviously there's a lot of shows out there. There's Casualty, there's like Hobby City, there's like I mentioned before, The Good Doctor. There's a show called Doctors, I think, as well. Have you watched any of these shows yourself?
Not the ones you mentioned. I think I probably used to watch ER. If you remember, that's from
was that
years ago. American.
Was that fictitious or was it
fictitious? Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So I watched that, and that was sort of okay. I don't really, because it's work, and is it amazingly realistic? Well,
that's my follow-up question is when you watch these, because from the outside we haven't got a clue what's real and what's not in these surgery shows. We don't know. Like I mentioned to you on the phone, in The Good Doctor, the woman had a lot of cancer in the abdomen, and it spread, and they took out all her organs, removed the cancer, put all the organs back in, and it was obviously a very radical treatment. And I asked you, would you do that? And you're like, probably not. So how realistic are these shows in your opinion?
Well, I think they try to be realistic with some of the kit that's around, and etc. From what I've seen, some of the discussions that people have, it's not quite how it works out. I mean, it's but on the other side of the coin, you may say they try to over dramatize it in the television shows, but I would probably say there's probably more gritty and real life drama in real life. There really are some decisions you have to make. There's some pretty hard emotions. There's high emotion with regard to anger and guilt and disrespect sometimes, so they can be quite charged, some of the places. And then so that's outside the operating theatre. But inside the operating theatre, I think it's often portrayed as being quite tense and quite sort of formal, whereas I'm saying it's the vast majority of time it's very professional, but it's less formal. However, there are those spikes into incredibly high drama, and you could never ever recreate that on the television. And the reason for that is because people's reactions, surgeons, anaesthetists, nurses, scrub staff in that environment are only like that because it's real life and the patient's life's in danger. So, and I've seen that firsthand, and you just can't act that. And I suppose it may be the same as, if you're a soldier, like Moses, high tariff profession. Can you recreate that on the film? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But I think the only way to experience it, I think, is to be in it. And that's why I say to trainees who come in, this is a real privilege. You're in theatre, not because you're in my theatre particularly, but actually not many people get to come in. And soak up the atmosphere, witness the atmosphere, see what it's like. So yeah, I think not ideally the same.
It's slightly exaggerated, but I think it's the lingo for me that gets me, when they're like screaming, I need this and that, and I need 6 ounces of this and 400 milliliters of this, and I need it stat. You know what I mean?
Do you know what we talked about? When it's like that. But when it's like that, and you're doing a case, and if I'm working with a scrub sister or a charge nurse, who I know very well, I am literally looking at the operative field, and I have my left hand in the operative field, and I have my right hand with the instrument in. And I am operating, and I'm looking at you now, not even looking at the scrub sister or charge nurse. I will deliver that instrument back, and I do not even have to speak, and they are so much in tune that the right instrument comes in. And it's like scissors, right angle, tie, Liger clip, Kuza, and it's just beautiful. And that is flow. It's just absolutely flows.
I like that, yeah.
And you don't have to. You don't. There's none of this screaming and shouting. It's just happening like that.
But I think that works so much better, because then it's not, you can deal with what you're dealing with, and they're obviously helping you with that. You're not managing them at the same time. You're not going, I need you to go and get this while I'm trying to hold someone's organs apart. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're not having to manage a full team at the same time as perform what could be life-threatening surgery. It's
and that's why it is a team. And even though you are, inverted commas, in charge in theatre, clearly there's yourself, the sister, and the anaesthetist, who are the 3 people who are the most senior people. It is a team. You cannot do it on your own. And there could be a situation that it's looking tricky to control this blood vessel. I'm trying to get round it. It's a bit, I'm not so sure, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll say to sister, I'm going to need the vascular clamps. And what she's done, she's seen I've been trying this for 10 minutes. She's already on the QT, spoke to the floor nurse, get the vascular clamps over because it's probably going to need those. So when I do need them, they're available.
Love it.
And that's an absolutely amazing team. And actually, if you speak to the theatre staff, what they want to do, they want to, all individuals, I can't say for everybody, but in a large, they want to perform at their best, to be part of the cog in the team that has a good patient outcome. And what they can do is have that. And therefore, what I do after every case is really thank the theatre staff as number one. If they've gone up and beyond, I will actually tell them and tell the sister or their child, say they're really good here, especially the new ones. Yeah. When I see
they
them
need the most,
better, keep them up. But also, and here's the important thing, Adam, because I'm very honest, down to earth, will say when things have gone well. Yeah. If things haven't gone quite so well, there's no point brushing on the carpet.
No, because they don't learn from that, do they?
I'll say, look, we could have done this a bit better, guys. Come and look at it. And because I'm actually compliment them when it's gone well, then they understand that it's for their benefit. And and actually the second thing is asking them for feedback for me, because they may think, I can't tell Mr. French what he was like in theatre, but I do say to sister, ask your staff, what was I like in theatre? Any problems? Could I have done anything differently? And not much is particularly come back, apart from one or two little bits.
I was going to say, so there's not like a list that goes back every time.
No, but it's actually offering, and I think that's quite powerful, because if I'm going to give people feedback, I need to ask for feedback for myself, 100%, and be robust enough to be able to say, probably could have done that a bit better. Right, I'll work on that.
Absolutely. Have you seen that? I think it's a classic. What do we call it? It's just an image, I guess you would say, of the boss versus a leader. Have you seen this one? So it's on the top half you've got what a boss is, and he's sat at the back on a big stone. He's sat on a big stone telling people to pull it, and all the workers are pulling the stone, and he's sat on the top of it saying, pointing that way. But the leader on the other side of the image is at the front pulling the stone with them, and that just shows you the difference between a boss, like you said, that you could be, where you boss them around, you don't take feedback on board, you tell them what to do, etc. Whereas you're at the front line with them, you're part of a team, and you're helping them along with it.
And I like that. I like that analogy. Actually, it does work out, because you're all pulling in the same direction. But I think I haven't seen the graphic, but I would imagine that the leader is could be in the pack, but could be slightly separate as well, because actually, Nelson Mandela said that sometimes. I use the analogy of being the shepherd with the sheep, and sometimes you just got to separate yourself out a little bit to have that role as well, but pulling in the same direction. Just a little bit, and I feel that now, just a little bit of distance. It's small, but it's perceptible.
Because otherwise, then you get you're part of the crew, but not the captain. Kind of, it's a weird. It is a dynamic that I think. When I used to work, I worked in a restaurant for 7 years, and I think sometimes there were some managers that came and went who were too much like us on the floor. Yeah. And then there were some managers who got the balance right, where they could bollock you if they needed to, but were also, you could have a chat with them and it was fine. They were stern when they needed to be. They got the job done. You could rely on them, but they weren't just pally with you as if they were still running food on the floor. You know what I mean? So I definitely I like team aspect.
Part of that is, I'm sure that boss, it wasn't anything about their knowledge how to cook or present or preserve or to deliver food. It was all human interaction and psychology, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think for what you do, I think it's incredible that you can manage a team, you keep you calm, and you can save lives at the same time. I think it's something that not many of us, like we said, not many of us will ever go into theatre, not many of us will ever see bodies opened up, organs removed, not many of us will see that, and I think that what you do and the way you can handle it, and I think a lot of people listening to this will be very, very impressed by that, mate. So I appreciate you coming on today, Jeremy. And normally I ask people where they can find you on social media and stuff, but I know you don't use social media, do you?
Not really. No, I think I have got a Facebook page, but I don't really look at it. And I don't do self-presentation. I think I've got a Twitter account, but I don't really use that. I suppose, what can I say? If there are any students who are thinking about doing medicine, then please follow that hunch wherever you are. in the country, the northeast, in Newcastle, whatever else. And if you are in the northeast, Newcastle, feel free to contact me via Freeman, and we can put you in contact with somebody to get some work experience. So I think that's the generation that we could really target, I suppose, on this one. I'd like to invite everybody into theatre to watch a case, but I'm not sure we'd I would love to see you do that. I'm sure you would want to do that, and maybe we can link up, and maybe we could do something with the theatre staff, because actually what you've heard it from my point of view, and that's fine, that's okay, but maybe there's another perspective from the theatre team, so maybe we'll link in, and we could even do that in the hospital, and so we can follow that up. So
that would be amazing. That would be amazing. One last thing, will there be a Geordie Hospital season 2? Are you going to be in that?
There is a Geordie Hospital season 2. I was asked to be in it, and I did politely decline, because I think enough's enough. Leave people. Well, I was going to say hungry for more, but they're not hungry for more. So
more Jeremy French.
Apart from my mum with a banner outside the hospital, let's leave that off. So there will be, and I'm not entirely sure what disciplines there are. Probably some slightly some other ones. So we'll look out for that soon. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I would love to see you back on TV. I would love to see you back.
Cheers, you never know at some stage. But Adam, it's been a pleasure speaking to you as well.
Likewise, mate. Likewise.
I'll do a bit of reading about my Greek gods, I think, actually now. So,
Norse gods.
Greek gods. Norse gods. Sorry, I got Norse gods.
Can you name any Norse gods? Do you know any? There's one really classic one that's in the media at the minute.
Isn't there Thor?
Thor, yeah.
Thor, Odin. Is it Valhalla's the place where they go? Yeah. Is that right? Poseidon.
That's Greek.
That's Greek, isn't it?
Greek god of the sea, I think.
Sea and the underworld, isn't it? I think. Actually.
It's like Hades, isn't it?
Hades is the underworld.
Yes.
Oh, I'm getting out. He's brought me onto a subject he's going to be out muscle me on now, but that's okay. So there's all things like Athena and things, but I think they're all Roman gods. I make it mixed up. Another Norse god.
No, Norse god. You've got Odin. You've got Thor. You've got Thor as another one. Frey and Freya. Loki as another one.
Wow.
God damn it! Who else we got?
Okay,
there's more, but that's
Gandalf.
Saruman. Are you a Lord of the Rings fan as well?
Yeah.
Fantastic. We could do. I tell you what. Let's invite Jeremy back to do a podcast where we just talk about Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and we'll just let the cameras and things run for hours on it. Yeah. That'd be amazing. But mate, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate your time. And as always, guys, please leave us the 5-star review. And none of this 4-star bullshit, because 4 stars nothing. Just be nice. Give us the 5, and it really makes my day, and it takes a second of your day to make mine. So thank you very much for listening, guys, and I will see you all in the very next episode.